So today I'll talk about Buddha and Zen, or Zen and martial arts. I've been doing martial arts for 35 years. Karate, Aikido, Jiu-Jitsu, Kobudo, Japanese swordsmanship for 35 years. It was one of my earliest ways into Zen, which was what I was primarily interested in doing, was getting into Zen. At that time, I had no way as a teenager into Zen. There weren't any temples I could go to very close. And I thought, one of the best ways for me into Zen training was to go into martial arts, to take up Budo. And I was very, very impressed with, if you've seen the movie Seven Samurai, one of the characters in Seven Samurai, I think the character's name is Ako, I can't remember exactly. He's the fellow we see at the opening of the film. We see him throughout the film, but at the opening of the film, very famously has the duel in the field with another man who insists. The other man insists he could have won that fight. That he had in fact won that fight, and it was mistaken to believe that he hadn't. They're having a friendly duel in the field with bokto, wooden swords, and this other fellow won't accept that he has been defeated, and then they he insists on having a rematch with live weapons. Well, anyway, this character, I'll call him Ako, even if it's not correct, was impressive to me. Not because of the supposed skill, but the appearance, the demeanor of his self-control. The other man manifests, ego in that situation. He wants to win at all costs. He wants to be recognized as the winner of that fight. The other, our hero in this duel, is just there to train himself. The duel, who wins or loses, he doesn't give the air of caring about who wins or loses. He knows he wins, but actually this is not very important to him. You get the sense that this is not important to him. It's not the fighting, it's not the winning or the losing or a competition. He's only entered into the competition between the two men, the duel, because it's an interesting way to train himself. That fascinated me. That connection between Zen and martial arts fascinated me as all that, and I thought, I want to live like that. That's true. Zen in martial art, Zen in Buddha, is to train to be like that. So anyway, I entered into training. Zen as in martial arts. Well, we have to talk about Buddha or Buddha or martial arts as Shugyo. Shugyo, this word, sometimes I use it in the Zendo. Shugyo, what does this mean? It means a spiritual training. Sometimes it's translated not very precisely, but it's okay. Who wants? We're not here to pick back and forth about translation. That's for a language teacher. But sometimes it's translated as polishing, and polishing is a little bit of a misnomer in Zen. We'll talk about that a bit later. But sometimes it's translated as polishing, to polish yourself, to polish yourself spiritually. If you were to ask a Japanese person to translate this term and they're not a language expert, very often they will say to you, if you ask them, what does shugyo mean? They will say, it means to polish myself, to train myself. And I can do it in a number of ways. Maybe it's playing golf. Maybe it's taking a job that's very difficult for me. Maybe it's even taking a job that's very difficult for me. Working under a boss is very difficult for me. Shugyo can be anything which presents you some difficulty which you can use to yourself. Anyway, one side of the martial arts is the physical side. For some, learning karate or boxing, that means the sport or the defense or the physical training. You go down to the dojo and you feel, you work out or something. For some people it's like that. For others, they want to get into competitions and they want to do that. They want to train towards competitions and they want to train towards wins and so forth. That sports side. Some people want to take up a martial art for defense. They think, well, what can I do if somebody comes up to me on the street or something? That's one side of the martial arts. And there's a skill attainment associated with that. I want to attain a skill here. I want to attain a skill of throwing somebody across the floor if they jump me at the bar. Or I want to be skillful enough to win a match. And some people would say that that's the only reason that they do a martial art or join a self-defense class or something like this. Or maybe some people, when they go to work, they would say, all I do it for is for the money, or it occupies my time. I don't know what I'd do if I didn't work. This is the whole point of what I'm doing here. Some people are there because they want to explore their martial arts. They love their Aikido. They love the technique. And it's just an exploration. I'm sure there are some people who play chess like that, who really aren't very interested, once again, in the winning or the losing, but it's a kind of exploration of what they're doing. For some, there's also, a relationship to preserving what they're doing. I'm in classical martial arts. As I said, I used to do karate and jiu-jitsu, but really what interested me was to remain in classical martial arts, the very old martial arts, Kobudo of Japan. And there are some people you encounter in that, and they're very interested in the history of Japan. They're very interested in that. Uh, there are some people who fall into the politics, you know. All these things can be very sustaining, but a lot of people also, drop this stuff after a period of time. It runs out for them, or they turn into the politics of it, etc., and start, arguing, I've got a bigger belt than you've got, and all of that. I can throw more people around than that guy. Oh, that guy doesn't know what he's doing. That teacher doesn't know what he's doing. I'm the expert. I'm a bigger expert than that guy. And fall into that. But then there's what we call shugyo, as I was saying. And this is the iceberg below the water. This is the real. This is the real body. Although some people never see that. Some people are just transfixed on what I would call the iceberg above the water, which is that physical aspect of training. That physical aspect of training, and that sporting side, or the politics, or whatever, the stuff, that's the part that you can easily see. And it's the part that you can easily show off. But the iceberg below the water is about you and your and your shugyo. There is just a limit for everyone to how fast they will ever be, or how good they will ever be at a martial art, if you're going for that. You age, and you reach, after you reach a peak, you'll drop off as well. So to be realistic, if you're chasing after just becoming fast or better or more expert than somebody else, well, there's always somebody else waiting to come up from below you, waiting to come up from below you, waiting to replace you, at that. If you want to look at your training like that. So, shugyo, or martial arts as Zen, in this case, is the training within yourself. This is where training really impacts your life. Contrary to the idea that training is about how many people you can beat or something like that. And it's not even about beating yourself. Sometimes I get people who, I meet, or they come to the Zendo and they say, I'm my ultimate opponent. Among the Iaido people who want to train in Iaido, which is with a sword, and you often you're sitting by yourself and you draw the sword really fast and you do these katas and so forth. Many of them talk about, the swordsman is a reflection of me, the enemy is a reflection of me, etc., like that, But that's still fixed on the idea that there's somebody to cut down. There's somebody to win against. And there's something separate from us, The ultimate opponent for ourselves in that kind of interpretation is ourself. But that's limited. And it's problematic. It's nihilistic, in fact. It's kind of nihilistic. It's actually not very healthy. It's not a very healthy way to train. And it's limiting. And it doesn't particularly raise your life. It's okay for, at the beginning of your training. But it's not proper shugyo. It's not actually, it won't grow your life. Proper shugyo is forgetting yourself. You're training yourself to forget yourself. Uh, compassion replaces the opponent. Then you're really training. That's where you're really training out in life. That's where you take, you know, where life becomes your dojo. You know? Then you affect the world around you. How many battles can you fight? Just one or two, or 10,000? The way to fight 10,000 is not fighting. In everyday living, we have the saying, Zen and the sword as one. This is very, very famous, you know. Zen ken ichi. Zen and sword as one. This doesn't mean the ultimate warrior, you know. And, you know, like I said, you know, I was, as a kid, I was very, you know, I thought for quite a while, Zen and training and, you know, swordsmanship and, you know, karate and so forth. This is about becoming the ultimate warrior, you know. Which is okay. As I said, it's okay, but you have to leave that at some point, you know. You have to leave that at some point. You have to outgrow that. That's perhaps a better description of it. Outgrowing it. Outgrowing the belief that this is about some power to defeat everyone that you're trying to attain. And it means training in every day. Whether you go to the dojo or not every day, or pick up your sword or your gloves or whatever it is that you do every day, we're not just talking about that physical aspect of training as every day. We're talking about training as every day, every moment. When your training has become indivisible from you, that is Zen Ken Ichi, sword and Zen as one. When your training has become indivisible from you. This is not just one of realization, training until one day you have some realization about life. Well, if that happens, it passes. You know, it does. You know, sometimes you're training, sometimes you take a hit in the head, or you're sweating your guts out at the boxing gym or the dojo or wherever, or in your garage. And you have, you know, some realization about things. You're sitting on your cushion doing zazen. You have some realization about things. But it passes, you know. And it passes because it's a phase. It's a valuable phase. But it's not the ultimate of your training. We're talking about sustained training, about sustained realization. The realization that training can be either in a martial art or zazen. It doesn't just lead to enlightenment, but it is the manifestation of your effort. Enlightenment is not a thing. Becoming powerful is not a thing. Zenki, Zen power, is not a thing that you get. Victory is not a thing that you get, but it is the manifestation of your effort. the manifestation of your daily training.